Hello everyone. Welcome to this TEFL org webinar. My name's Carl. Just to let you know that this is where it's all going to happen. If you just hold on for a minute, we'll start at 2 o'clock and hopefully you'll learn more about how to teach online. Okay, so we're starting in about 60 seconds. If you are here already, please write in the comments section what your name is and where you're from, just so that I know that there's a few people watching me and just so we can get a feel of all the people that are out there, maybe around the world, and who are thinking of moving into online teaching. Okay, so just write your name and your location in the comments and I'll give you a shout out if I see them. Okay, by my reckoning, it's 2 o'clock, so let's get started. Welcome to this webinar. My name is Carl, and I'm one of the tutors in the classroom courses that happen in TEFL org around the world, in the UK, in Europe, and in America. And you're very welcome to join us on this webinar, and hopefully I can teach you a bit more about online teaching. Obviously, at the moment around the world, there's a lot going on this day, and also we just want you to stay safe wherever you are in the world and hope that this thing that's affecting all of us, bringing us all together in some ways, really doesn't affect you and your family, and we wish you the best. Okay, I can see a few people already saying hello. Amazing Jackson, Martina, Nicola, Joe, Joel, Malcolm, Benedetta, Stefan, look, already from around the world, this is fantastic. So it's great that so many of you are tuning in on this Friday afternoon. So if you do have any questions about online teaching, I hopefully will answer them as I go through the things that I've prepared to talk to you about. But if you do have some specific questions, please type them into the comments. I might not be able to answer them straight away, but I will look at them at the end. Definitely leave you some time at the end to answer any questions that you may have that I haven't covered in the course. Please, let's interact on this. It doesn't work if it's just really me just talking at you. Please let me know if you've got any questions specific, and we'll go from there. Also, if the stream does drop, I'll just come straight back onto this page. So please don't go away. If you somehow lose me, I'll come back and we'll go straight back into it where we picked up. Okay. Hello, everyone that's just said hello. Nice to speak to you. Okay, so a little bit about me. Let me bore you for a little bit. My name's Carl. I live in Northern Ireland. I'm originally from London, though, and I'm a TEFL tutor for the weekend courses over here in Belfast in Northern Ireland. I've been teaching for about 15 years in various places around the world, in East Asia, Southeast Asia, but also the Middle East. And I now teach mainly online, but I also tutor face-to-face, and I also work as an examiner for various different exam boards around Europe. Like all of the tutors on TEFL org, I am quite experienced, I think, in the field. I've been at it for quite a while, and we really have a passion here at TEFL org for helping people like you to get into teaching, because it's given me a fantastic life, and hopefully it can give you one as well. Right. Okay, so I've been looking at some of the questions that have been posted into TEFL org over the last few days on the Facebook site, and also some of the questions that people ask me as an online teacher, and I'm just going to go through them first, sort of step by step as I go. All right, so again, please, if you just started watching, say hello, tell us where you're from, and also ask any questions. Right. Probably the most common question I get asked by people wanting to teach online, and also in the weekend courses that I teach in Northern Ireland, is I want to teach online. What equipment do I need? Now, I am doing this from a converted bedroom in my house in Northern Ireland. I could move this camera that way and you'll see a very suburban setting with a road and my car parked out the front. And if I send the camera that way, you'll be able to see my daughter's bedroom. I'm not going to do that, obviously. And in this office, I have set up everything I need to teach online. And basically I have a desktop computer sat next to me. I have a webcam that I'm looking at right now. I have these very attractive headphones that I wear all the time. I've got so used to them, even though they're not the prettiest of things that I've ever seen. I have a sofa behind me for a little seat if I get a bit tired, you know, just somewhere to relax. And basically that's it. That's all my equipment. Now, some people ask me, oh, I've only got a mobile phone. Can I teach online with a mobile phone? And what I would say to you is probably it's difficult. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's pretty difficult. The reason why I believe you need a laptop with Windows or a Mac with whatever the software is that Macs use. I don't have a Mac, sorry. Can't afford one. But what you really need to be able to do is to show the students your screen sometimes. So that would mean if you've got a Word document open or a PowerPoint document open, you would need to be able to show that to your students sometimes. The other thing that you might need to be able to do sometimes is play sound clips. So if you're doing a lesson on a grammar point and you want to play some specific music that helps to highlight that, then you can play that through a computer a lot more effectively than you can through a mobile phone or a tablet, because you need to keep switching screens basically. So I really would say to you, it's very, very difficult to teach from a computer. Sorry, from a mobile phone. It's much, much easier to teach from a computer. Okay. Now, a laptop or a desktop, it doesn't really make that much difference, I personally think. I prefer a desktop because I'm in a office setting. I've also got 2 monitors. So you'll see me today looking at you, but also looking across at my notes that I have on a Word document here. I've also got the comments coming up here. So it just gives me a lot more space to be able to look at things as we go, and also just to be able to flip things over to my students. Okay, so look, I'm looking at this. They ask me a question. Maybe I need to get up a picture of something. I quickly type it in. I can look at it there without losing my students, and then just flick the screen over. That's one of the reasons why I like to use computers. Okay. Now, the main piece of hardware that it's worth, I think, spending a bit of money on is your internet connection. The better your internet connection, just the smoother everything works. I have in the past lived in quite rural parts of the UK, and the internet can be quite slow, and it's very, very difficult to get that connection. Okay, so I actually think if this is something that you want to do long term, it's worth spending money to pay for a faster internet connection. Okay. I think that if your internet connection is slow, then it does cause problems between you and also your students. Okay. So I really recommend. Now, the other reason why it's worth having a good internet connection is because some recruiters, and in a minute I'll talk about how to get jobs, but some recruiters will ask you to check the speed of your internet before they give you some work. Now, if you've got quite a slow internet connection, that might be the reason that stops you getting the job. You might have given a perfect, beautiful lesson interview. You might have been able to describe a grammar point really well, you might come across as the most friendliest of teachers in the world. But if they ask you to check your internet connection and your internet connection is not very quick, they will not give you a job. Okay? So by hardware terms, I think that's the best way of doing it. I really think that, and I think that having a mobile phone or even a tablet does really limit you in what you can do in the classroom. Okay. I can see some comments there down the side that people are saying 2 monitors sounds like a great idea. Could you use a Google Chromebook? I use my laptop. This kind of thing. Now I'm going to screw the questions in a minute. I love the questions so much. Okay. People all over the world there. But at the end, I'm going to sort of correlate some of those questions that we have. Okay. Just some of the couple of quick questions there about hardware. Let me see if I can search some. Okay, yeah. How do we check the ideal speed for our connection? Okay, there's a website, and off the top of my head, it's www.speedtest.com. But in Google, type in how do I check my internet connection, and I'm sure it'll be able to tell you that. Now, what is the ideal speed test? I'm sorry, I don't know that answer. If anybody out there in the comments does know them, please put them in there. Now, when you go for a job, and I'm going to talk about jobs in a minute, they will tell you the thing. Look, perfect, someone's already put in there the speed test. Thank you, Thomas. There, that will really help you to find that out. Okay, can you use a Chromebook? I never used a Chromebook. I have an Android phone, but I don't have a Chromebook. Tell me, is it easy to switch between windows in a Chromebook? Okay, I don't know. It might be good, it might not be. Okay, to use a Chromebook or not, I don't really want to say. I use Windows, and very often recruiters will ask you to have a Windows laptop or a Windows operating system on your desktop or Mac. So to use a Chromebook, I'm not so sure there, Graham, who's just answered that question. I can't see any more questions. Okay, well, there's a few questions there about software, so let's go on to software now. Okay. Oh, right. So, do you need any special software? Is something that's asked by me a lot. Okay. Sorry, it's asked to me a lot. I teach 90% of my online lessons using either Skype. Hopefully you all know Skype, or a program called Zoom. Zoom is like a more professional video conferencing program, and alongside that I use Google Docs, a shared Google document between me and the student. That is what I use. That's what the software that I use for 90% of my online lessons. So Skype is free, Google Docs is free, and Zoom is free up to a lesson of 40 minutes. Beyond, if you want to teach for lessons than 40 minutes, it's not. You have to pay for that, and roughly that's about $15 US dollars a month. Okay. So if you're just starting, don't go out and buy some new sort of teaching software that you might see online. I honestly believe that you can get by just with the software that's probably already on your computer. And it's to have accounts. You might need to have an account for well, you definitely will need to have a Google account, a Skype account, and a Zoom account, but you don't really need much else. Now, the reason why I like to use a shared document like a Google document is they're quite easy for the students to set up. I have found in my teaching life that the software you use depends on what your students can handle. So if your students can't handle quite difficult software, and there's still parts, you know, there's young people that I come across who don't really know how to use Microsoft Word so much, and they've always used Google Docs. Keep it very, very simple, because by keeping it simple, you allow the students to use them. Okay, and so think like a student. you want to have all this complicated software installed in your computer? Do you really want to have all these windows open as you're doing it, or not? Or do you want to just keep it simple? I would say that we want to keep it simple. So keep to Skype, keep to Zoom, or keep to Google Docs. Okay. Once you've got into it, you might venture into something like Google Education. I've heard lots of good things about Microsoft Teams, but you'd have to teach the students how to use that. So not only are you teaching them English, you're also teaching them how to use these programs. So I would really keep it simple as best you can. Okay. A couple of comments there about how they use Google Docs is fine. Now, to use a whiteboard, I just sort of type into Google Docs basically, or I copy and paste things into Google Docs from the internet if I need to. I don't think you really need to have something super amazing. Okay, right. The other reason for using simple software is that very often, in my experience, students, you might be using a computer, students on the other side want to use a mobile phone, and as much as you can tell them, please can we use a laptop, or please can we use a desktop, I found that a good 40% of them like, no, I want to use my tablet, or no, I want to use my mobile phone. And it's not ideal to be using difficult software really so much if that is going to be a situation. Okay, right, hopefully I answered some big things there. David there saying great for Google Docs. There's a link. I really there's some people putting their own links in there as well. Fantastic. Okay, so good job. Okay, right. Any other questions? I'll try and answer them as we go on. Okay, hope that has covered what software and what hardware. Do not go out and spend lots of money on all this fantastic fancy stuff. Keep it simple at the start, and I'll show you in a minute how to do a lesson using Google Docs and using Skype or using Zoom. Okay, good. Right, just going to have a little quick drink there. Thank you everyone for still checking in. I can see questions coming in, and I promise I'll get to them at the end. I'll scroll down through them. Thank you much. Just keep them going. Yep, structuring your lessons. I'm coming to that in about probably about 5-10 minutes. I don't know. Right. Next thing. So you've got your hardware. You've sort of got your software. The next thing you might think about is, how do I actually get students? And obviously we want to make a bit of cash, and to make a bit of cash we need students. Okay, how do you get students? Okay, right, three ways, I think. Three ways to get students. Right, the first way, and this is probably the simplest way, and if you are at a moment you're a teacher yourself physically in classrooms and you're not in work because of the situation that's going on, the simplest way would be to contact some of the quite large online teaching companies, and you basically apply for a teaching job through them. So some of the ones, I've written them down. So for example, there's a company called Say ABC, and there's a company called DADA, D-A-D-A. And Say ABC, I think, have a link on the TEFL.org website. So have a look through there. Also a couple of recruiters on the TEFL.org website, the job section, that is are recruiting at the moment for TEFL teachers. Now, you would apply to them like you would apply for a normal teaching job. You would fill in a application form, or you'd send a CV, and then you'd have some sort of interview, and they would often ask you to do some sort of trial lesson for them. Okay, so they'll ask you to either do some sort of lesson for kids or some sort of lesson for adults, depending on what it is that they're going to teach. What it is you're going to teach. Okay. Right, then they would provide you the students, and then they would pay you, the company, not the students. And the company often give you things like lesson plans and give you a syllabus to follow, and that would be how you would get students, probably in the quickest way. Now, is it the best paid way to get them? I'm not so sure it is, but you're probably going to get more hours over the course of a week doing it that way, and you're probably going to get more reliable payments, and you're probably going to be able to get yourself up and running a lot more quickly. Okay, basically. So a couple of people asking there about who did I just mention? Yep, there's a company called Say ABC, SAYABC. There's a link to that one, I think, in the TEFL org jobs section, and there's also a company called DADA, DADA, and there's also some specialized recruiters that are on the TEFL org website. So start with them, because if you're looking to get up and going, they very often want an online TEFL course like the one that we offer, maybe with some maybe with a practical course. Sometimes they don't ask for teaching teaching experience. Sometimes they're asking you for just people that are new to teaching as well. So it's a very sort of nice way to ease yourself into the world of online teaching, and you can see if you like it, see if you can enjoy it, and it's a quick way of getting yourself into it. Okay. The second way of doing it is, if you're already teaching, is to, and this is how I've got students, is you ask the school that you work for if they would like to give you to start teaching online. They can have links to more students than you do. They advertise already, things like this, and you can get the students to them, and they would say, yeah, actually, yeah, do you know what? We had a student last week who wants to have a couple of hours of business English. Could you teach that? And you go, yes, I would more than happy teach that for you. Teach it online. They can't go along how they want to do. Okay. And then you go from that, sort of build up through word of mouth. You use the contacts that you've already got to try and get your students. I have got students through that way. I have also contacted ex-students that I have used to taught. I like to stay in touch with my students on Facebook, and I've contacted them. Hi, I'm now teaching online. Would you like lessons? And believe it or not, quite a few have said yes. It's amazing how some people they learn English sort of solidly for 2 years, then they let it go for 5 years, and then they come back again. All right. So that way of doing it, and then that way you can sort of do more local lessons with more people that are maybe around you, or maybe that are in your country. That helps with the time difference, because sometimes if you're going to go work for a recruiter, the time difference can make a difference. So if you're teaching students in China in the morning, that can sometimes be in Europe in the middle of the night, can be a bit difficult. Or so if you're kind of a bit worried about that kind of thing, then sort of getting students from around you helps you. Okay. Yeah, so I'm just going to scroll down a couple of questions, see if there's any sort of relevant. No, there's some lovely points there. Keep them coming in. Thank you very much. Let me just start with that one. Adele, I'm going to start with these companies first, but really worried it's heavily saturated. Right, look, there's two ways of thinking about the situation in the world at the moment. There are a lot of people wanting to teach online, because a lot of people aren't teaching physically in the classroom. On the flip side of that, there's a lot of people wanting to learn online because their classrooms and their schools are shut. So I would not worry too much about it being heavily saturated. I would also not rely too much on one recruiter. I would go on the TEFL org website, but also look at others, TEFL.com, also look at ESLCAF is another one, got ESLCAF.com. See what you can get through them, through a range of different people that would suit you more. Because sometimes with those recruiters, they would rather people teach kids, or sometimes they would rather people teach adults. Okay, so are you competing with teachers to get booked? Yes, with the recruiters, I would say there is a little bit of that, but I would stick in there. Okay, you can, once you've got one lesson, and if that lesson went well and you got good feedback, and that, you'll get more. Okay, I've heard various different outlooks on whether they like to get people that have been teaching for a while on new people. I would say just go for it and just see what happens. Okay, Peter, eslcaf.com. They do sometimes do online teaching jobs on there, but also on TEFL.org, our website. There's some recruiters on there actively now looking for online teachers, and also TEFL.com. There's some as well. Okay. So the first way was for a recruiter. Second way was contacting the school that you have at the moment. The third way, and this is how I got myself up and running with online students, but it is probably the most difficult way of doing it. Okay, and that is to basically go out there and get yourself your own students. Okay, that you're someone with basically no contacts and you want to get yourself up and running. Okay, right. Some of the simplest ways of doing that, of just physically getting yourself a couple of online teachers, is, believe it or not, and I actually have done this, is using sort of classified ads online, websites like Gumtree. If you advertise yourself on there as an online teacher, you would be surprised how many people sort of contact you through that one. Okay, also the next thing is sort of local groups on Facebook. So you say, hi, I'm in Belfast, Northern Ireland, and I'd like to I'm advertising myself as an online teacher. Believe it or not, they like, okay, students like to see there's sort of a human connection to it. There's someone not to, okay, it's online, you could be anywhere in the world, but they like to keep that local connection. I have got students that way. Okay, when I first started, that's how I got them. Okay, so basically just putting yourself out there, just going on class, just launching yourself everywhere, saying this is my email address, this is who I am, I can help you with this. Boom, let's go. All right, so that's one way, classified ads basically. Another way to your own, which is quite slow and does depend on a bit of online sort of know-how and a bit of technical kind of experience, is to make your own website, and from that website you advertise yourself. You can allow people to book in lessons, you tell them your prices, you tell all of these things, and then you throw that website out through adverts. So you could do it through Google advertising, you could do it through Facebook advertising if you set up a Facebook page as well, and you just build up this bank of students, bank of followers. You know, you can put so I started putting lessons on YouTube. They're still up there. I'm not going to point to them now because they look a bit amateurish, but that's how I got my students, and then from there it's grown basically. I have a Facebook page with about 10,000 followers, and on that Facebook page I put down lessons, I put down polls, I put down tips of the day, and that I get inquiries like that. So I find that I charge more. I'm going to get to money in a minute, but I find that I can charge more through doing this because it looks a bit more professional. There's no cut from agencies. The money's going straight from the student to me, and I can sort of pick and choose my students a little bit more that way, but I have been doing it a good few years. I understand for some of you, you're looking to start right now, but that is the way you slowly sort of build up your following, and just like that. Okay, that's what that's the way that I would do it if I was you long term. You could offer them some sort of trial lesson. I started by offering a 20-minute trial lesson for £1. They gave me £1. I taught them for 20 minutes. They liked me. They then booked me for however many pounds I charged. They didn't like me. I never heard from them again. That's what I started with, and that's how I built up my following and how I get my money in. Okay, I hope that's answered your questions on how to teach online. Materials, there's a question there about materials. I'm going to get to that in a minute. Someone asked me if I'm in London. Oh, no, they're not. They're asking someone called Paddy if I'm in London. Jennifer Sullivan. Well, there are a few people have liked this question. Let me see if I can answer that one for you. What is the best route for someone TEFL qualified with no in-class teaching experience? Okay, Jen, if you're looking to teach online, which is what this webinar is all about, I would say the best way to do it is to go through a recruiter on TEFL.org or on some of the other job websites, because they will provide you with lesson plans. They will also use their own system for you to contact the students. They'll help you with the payment. That is the quickest way to get going in with it. Okay. I would say that is the best way for someone, the best route for someone who's just starting straight away. Okay. Julia, the best way to get private students, classified adverts is the best, or using your own contacts. Do you need prior classroom experience in order to teach online? I'm going to come to that in a second. Aideen, or I'm sorry if I've not said your name correctly there. Someone says Fiverr. Okay, I've used Fiverr.com for my own business needs. I've not used them to advertise myself as a teacher on there. Maybe though, why not? If she worked for me, Fiverr would work. Okay, how do you get paid, Bambi? I'm coming to that next. Right. Sorry, just one more thing. If you're going to create your own website, be prepared to deal with time wasters. You're going to have a lot of people asking you to give them lessons for £2 an hour, and how you deal with that is entirely up to you. Okay, how much should I charge is another question, which we're going to come to with how do you get paid. Right. How much should I charge? I would say depends on where you live in the world. For my online lessons, I teach a bit more than the local colleges pay for EFL teachers. So I'm not going to throw out numbers, but that's basically. But I'm in the UK. The UK is expensive, especially if you live in the southeast of England, it is quite expensive. Do you want to be working for £9–10 an hour? Maybe not if you're in the UK. I don't know. It depends on you and your financial situation. If you're in other parts of the world where the cost of living is lower and therefore probably the average wage is lower, you could probably charge them less. So if you're in India and you want to teach Indian students online because you want to stay in that time zone, Indian teachers, you feel like you can get Indian students quicker, your probably rate of pay that you charge is going to be lower than the rate of pay that I charge. If you are wanting to get students from around the world, so you don't really care where your students are from, then you probably want to think about where you do your advertising. If you're going to advertise in Southern Asia, and you're advertising yourself for £30 an hour or £20 an hour, whatever it might be, it's quite a lot for them to pay. If you advertise yourself in Japan for this, that's about the rate of pay that they would pay in Japan. They're quite happy to pay that. Same in parts of Europe. So just think logically. How much would you want to pay as a student to learn this? Okay, and how much are you happy taking? Basically, how much should you charge? It just depends. Business English tends to pay more. Kids tends to pay a little bit less. I don't know. All right. Okay. It's really up to you. Right. Now, how will you get the money? Again, does depend on the students that you are teaching. So if you go through a recruiter, very important that in the interview process you find that out from them how they do it. A lot of the recruitment agencies are recruiting for East Asia. Not all. I've just seen a comment in there where people say a lot of my online students come from Eastern Europe. Yeah, for sure. It is a misconception to think that all students come from China. That's not true at all online. Okay, so how you pay would depend, because if you're teaching someone in your own country, it's generally easier to get paid. They just go into the bank on the app, something like that, and they transfer it over to you, no problem. When you start to go internationally, you need to use a company like PayPal, which is blocked in some countries. You can use other, there are, like, I think it's one called MoneyGram, things like this. They will charge you a fee. That's something you've got to take into consideration when you take the student, when you take money. Are you going to get the student to pay the fee, or are you happy to take that out of your rate? It depends on the students. That's why I like to teach students that are in the UK, because I can get the money more quickly. I can get the money more easily. I have had students in the past from China, and I have really struggled to get the money from them. Okay, so just be really careful about what you're doing. However, if you go through a recruiting agency, they will sort that out for you, and they, on the whole, are pretty good at paying. Okay, they might do an international bank transfer, and you'll get that money a couple of days after they say that you're going to get paid. Generally, I've not really seen many problems with the big recruitment agencies through that. Okay, please, if you have questions about that, or if you have any experience, please put it in there. Okay, the questions are coming in, and I love them, and I'm going to get to them, I promise to you, at the end. Okay, how will I get the money? Beware of the commission. Beware of how much banks are going to charge you to get that. Work it out yourself. Okay, right. Now, so you've got your hardware, you've got your software, and you've got some students that you've either found. So if you're doing this through a recruitment agency, it would be different, because they would probably tell you what to teach. They'll hopefully give you lesson plans, they'll give you a syllabus. But I'm talking more about you found a student. This person is willing to give you money, you love them, you want to give them a good job. How do you physically actually teach them? Okay, so first thing I would say to you is, you don't need to do, when you're starting off, you don't need to do anything super fantastic, amazing, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs like to get your students engaged in all the software and all this kind of thing. All right, the first few lessons, keep it simple, and then as you grow in confidence, maybe you'll bring in some extra software. Okay, maybe you'll go beyond using a Google Docs and start to use like a virtual learning environment. Okay, I really just want to give you guys some tips now on how to sort of get going. You've got this student, you're fine, right? So how to teach online? First thing, get them to get a Google account, get them to get a Skype account. Now I'm talking one-on-one. If it's groups, you might need to use Zoom. You can do multiple people with Skype, but I personally find is better for groups. Okay, don't then try to rewrite the way that you teach English. Okay, if you've got some experience, fantastic. Keep that experience, use that experience. If you're new, use the stuff that you've learned on the online course that we provide, or on the weekend course in the book that you provide, or however you've learned to be a teacher. Okay, don't think, oh no, I'm now teaching online, what am I going to do? Keep that experience in mind. Okay, so your student's got a Google account, you've got a Google account, you've both got Skype accounts, you're ready to go. Perfect. All right, think of, now this is the brochure that we use on the weekend courses. Okay, and on the online course they also teach something like that. And in this book, for example, if you're doing a grammar lesson, we teach something a little bit like this, which is the pyramid of an effective grammar lesson. Okay, so you've got the lead-in, you've got your presentation, you've got your control practice, and you've got your free practice. Now, I don't really want to go into the whole methodology, because I could fill another, I don't know, 20 hours or something along the lines of that. But a lead-in would be something like a picture. So you'd put a picture up, and you would get the students to try and speak about that. How do you do that online? You go to Skype. You've started your chat with the students. You've gone, right, screen share. You've clicked on screen share. Boom, you clicked on screen share, you drag across a photo if you're using another monitor, or you open up the window if you're just using one monitor, and you say to your students, right, here's a picture, what can you see? They chat about it, if there's a group, or they chat to you about it. You've started the interest in the topic, that's your lead in, Boom. Okay, just like you would put it up on a whiteboard, an interactive whiteboard in a classroom, or you would just hold a picture in the classroom. However you would do it physically, you're just doing it like that. You're not trying to rewrite how to teach English at the moment. Okay, you're just sort of going. All right. Right. So you've done that. That's your lead-in section. That's your lead-in section done. Where's my camera? There's my lead-in section. Now we're on to the presentation section. Right, so the presentation section is where you sort of teach the grammar. In the course we talk a lot about meaning and form, and pronunciation as well as the grammar, but generally the meaning and the form of a grammar point, you maybe have something, well, you should have something prepared in maybe another Google document or in a Word document, and all you do is you select the bit of it, you copy it, you paste it into the shared Google document. The student can still see you. They can also now see the Google, and you explain it, or you ask them questions so they can discover the information themselves. Or you might have a couple of activities on that grammar book. So just some questions underneath the grammar point. So for example, if you're doing the past tense, past simple past tense, you would say, okay, to make the past simple regular past tense, we add ed to the end of a verb. Underneath you've written a couple of questions, right? Discuss with your partner or discuss with your teacher, what do we do now to make this verb past tense? Something like that. You're not rewriting everything, you're just basically doing it in the same way to as you would in a classroom. Okay. Then the next section of a grammar lesson pyramid would be something like the controlled practice. We're down here. Fantastic book this, the TEFL org one. I really recommend it, and you will have amazing tutors like me, of course, if you go on a weekend course like this. The control practice is basically where you do some activities around checking the form of the grammar to make sure. So you would maybe have some missing words in a sentence, or you would say, right, put these, you'd have a sentence and you put these words in the past tense. You go like that. Okay. Next, you do a few. Next, you do a free practice or an activity. Sorry, I should have said you could copy and paste that into a Google Doc. The students type it underneath. As they type it, you can see what they're writing because it's a shared document. Okay, this is another reason why a laptop or a desktop instead of a mobile phone, because once they start trying to type on their mobile phone, they make mistakes. It's a bit of a problem. Okay, you're not trying anything so crazy. All right, you're just trying to keep it simple by using Google Docs. Then you have the free practice activities. The free practice activities is where they can use their imagination. They can get their fluency into it a bit. You might say, right, okay, let's talk about past tense. You copy and paste into the Google shared doc. Tell your partner or tell your teacher something that you did yesterday. Boom, they say, I jumped on a trampoline. I've just been watching my daughter on a trampoline. That's why I've got trampolines in my head. And you go through that and you correct them. You keep them going, just basically like that. And then you set in the homework. And then the good thing about the shared document is that they have that to take away. Now, some of you that are experienced in, you might think, oh, that's quite a boring way to do it. That's not going to work. But I'm talking about getting you up and going straight away. Promise you, this works if you stick at it. Use the lessons that you've created yourself, either through your training or as a teacher that you've been teaching for a while. Get them onto a Microsoft Word document. Copy and paste it into a Google Shared Doc, and that's fine. Okay. Now, an alternative way of teaching online, and this is quite boring, I really wouldn't recommend that you do that, is you get a textbook just like this one that I've got here for an IELTS course, and this is, you get your students to go buy that textbook. You have the textbook, and you can literally just show it the camera. Right, guys, now we're going to do the importance of the past. Right, we're going to do this. Sorry, my camera's gone out of focus there. I think it has. Sorry, my camera's gone out of focus. Right, guys, you open it up on page 14 and you just go through it like that, and then you answer their questions. You can type into a Google Shared Doc. You can type into the comments of Skype, and you can go like that. Do I recommend that? It's not the most thrilling, not the most exciting type of teaching in the world, but Would it get you up and going? Would it get you up and running? Yes. You might not have the highest enjoyment levels, but that would definitely sort of get you up and running. Okay. Right. Let me just see. Are there other? Yes. Right. Now, if you really don't feel like you like the idea of a Google shared document and just copying and pasting your activities, copying and pasting as you go into those, I have heard some very good things about Microsoft Teams recently, but again, you would need the student to download that. Okay. Right. Sorry, Savannah, you're going to go. Let me just quickly answer that. Right. Materials and copyrights. Right. Your materials is difficult. Okay. If you go down the textbook route, if you've both bought the textbook, I can't see a problem with that. Okay. Image copyrights, if Google has an option to search royalty-free images, you can get something like and also you could for sound clips and things like that, YouTube and things like that, I think are perfect for that. You don't need to worry about it, and then you can get your things like that. Okay. I'm glad that a few are saying, oh well, please no, don't use a textbook. Look, I would agree with you. You know, as someone just going through page 1, page 2 of the textbook is not the most thrilling free way of doing that, but it is a way of getting you up and running. Okay, that's what I would say to you. Okay, so that is all of my points. Okay, that I'm going to scroll right up to the back, up to the top of these two, if it will let me. It won't let me. 232 comments. Okay, and see how I can go at answering some questions. Right, what is the best headset value for money? I would love to. I'm sorry, I don't know. I have a G430. It works absolutely fine for me. It didn't cost me much more than 15-20 quid. Okay. Wi-Fi, what do you do for Wi-Fi? Now, a wired connection is better, but if you do use Wi-Fi, that's it. You know, just make sure it works well, basically. How would you advertise on the internet? What are your costs? Right. If you want to build your following quite quickly, the more you spend, the better. If you've only got £365 to spend, or $365 to spend on internet on advertising, do it over £1 a day. Right. Let's talk about niches and adults versus kids. There's some lovely questions there. Right. In my experience as an online teacher, adults, when they come, they want quite specific teaching. They want some. So, for example, I have guys that want to improve their presentation skills because they're going to give a presentation business English. So I would only teach them presentation skills. Basically, they want a lot of one-on-one feedback. They're willing to pay for 3 or 4 lessons. They don't want to pay for a full-time course. Maybe they just want to do that, and then that's how they do it. And that's kind of a niche, what we call a niche in the business, or a specific purpose, because you're doing business for presentations. There's also a with kids, it can tend to be quite groups. So open up your browser and there or 5 kids there sat there looking at you, ready to go, and you have to act the fool a little bit. Way, like, look at me, woohoo! What's this picture? For 40 minutes, and then kids classes tend to, but not always, tend to be divided into different age ranges. So you would have 6 to 9-year-olds maybe, and then you'd maybe have, I don't know, 10 to 12-year-olds, and then you might have 13 to 15, and then you might have 16 to 18. Okay. Right. I'm currently teaching. I hope that answers. I'm currently teaching my classroom students online, and I'm struggling to think of games and activities that keep them entertained. Right. Right. Any suggestions? Now, Sarah and Vivian Taylor, I'm sorry, I don't teach kids that often. Okay. What I would... So, I'm not an expert on teaching the kids. I would think of... You can get shared interactive whiteboard software. So I would look and think about some of the games that you would play in the classroom. Can you try and do that also on a shared interactive whiteboard? Okay. I would be making stuff up off the hoof if I start talking about activities for kids to do online, because unfortunately that's not my experience. If anybody else has some ideas, I think her name was Anne, please put them in there for her. I'm sure she'll look at them. Right, where can we get the book? The name of the pay to do a TEFL course and you'll get the book. Okay, with TEFL.org. Okay, good. Never use Google Docs. Need to look. Carolyn, have a look at it. I think that's fantastic. How many students should there be in a group? Right. I would say that if you're sort of going above 4 to 6, if you're going above 6, I would say it's difficult. Adults, in my experience, tend to want to have more one-to-one sort of work. They don't really like to be in groups, in my experience. The thing is, they want a lot of interactive. If people start talking over each other, it can cause a bit of a problem with the connection, I find. Okay. It works with friends. If you get 2 friends that are coming together, then that's fine. But with kids, tend to, the couple of times I have done it, they tend to all be in a room together in somewhere like Beijing or somewhere, and you see them all in a room together and it works all right, okay. But I wouldn't really go much beyond 4 or 6 for that one. Okay. How would you address the discrimination happening to non-native speakers when it comes to ESL? Adrian, in my masters, I wrote a module on why that shouldn't be a discrimination. Keep at it and show them yourself that you can do it. Okay, keep that going. All right. Keep going. Okay, just sort of going through it. Can I an interactive whiteboard? No, I don't know one. I just use my Google Docs. Okay. Would it be fair to ask a student to pay in advance after their first free lesson? Right. I don't get my students to pay in advance unless they're going to pay for 10 lessons up front and you're going to give them a discount. If they are only doing one-off lesson, I tend to give them the benefit and I give them that hour of my time and they pay me. That's how I found it. And I have never ever been conned that I know of. I did have some problems in China, but getting paid, but that was neither me. There's neither me there. I don't get the money in advance. I trust people. Anita. Is there any software you might use for playing dialogues? If I play it in Windows Media Player, will they hear it at the other end? Yes, Peter. There is a way in Skype and in Zoom to share your sound. The problem with using YouTube is you often get an advert at the start. Using something like Windows iTunes or something like that, yep, there's an option in Skype to share it. Okay. Phone Wi-Fi portable hotspot might work. I'm not quite sure on the speeds on that. Okay. What is the best way to design a syllabus for students to make sure they're getting a well-rounded education? Millie, that is a fantastic question, and I could easily do an hour on that. I'm not going to do that because it doesn't, to me, talk about online ones. Okay. If you send us a message, I might be able to answer that for you. How long are online classes in general? Right. Good question. I tend to not keep them for longer than 50 minutes, sometimes going up to an hour. I think longer than that, it's really, really difficult. I mean, we've been talking for 39 minutes. I think it's probably getting a, you're hearing me drag on quite a bit. You probably want to have a little break. You want to have a little walk around. You also sat in a chair yourself for 50 minutes. It can be difficult. Okay. Do I charge different prices for groups and individual classes? Yes. So I look at what my rate of pay I want for an hour, whatever that might be. So say if I want $10 an hour, I get one person to pay me $10. If 2 people sign up, I get them to pay me $5. If 3 people sign up, I might get them to pay me $3 and $3.50 an hour, whatever that might be, to keep me at that base rate. Once you start going above 3 or 4, you might be able to make a few extra quid out of them. Common problems you might have teaching a group online. Right, if you do, Anna, you're talking about pair work. Good question. Anna, if you use Zoom, you can put people into rooms and you can get two people talking to each other that you can hear, but they can't hear you, but they can't hear the other groups. So that's kind of like pairs works. Okay. Right. Could you share some? Vincent, hello. Where can I find syllabus guides? I want to make sure my students are on track for the local qualifications and use the difficulty level for them. Right. So you really should have placement tested them into the level that they are at the start. So hopefully you know what level they are, and just go from that. The syllabus would really depend on the qualification that they're going for. Just making sure that you're covering it all and just doing it. Quite often look at textbooks, look how they cover it, see if you can get syllabus from that. Right. Jennifer, hi. You flagged up your question there, Jennifer. Right. Is it rare to find a job that gives you group classes online? If you do get a group, paid per child or still one flat rate per hour minute? No. Is it rare to find a group? No. So if you go through a recruiter, you'll quite often get group classes online, especially if you teach kids. Finding groups yourself is difficult because you've got to advertise more to get more people coming in. If you do get a group, would you be paid per child or still one flat rate per hour or minute? Depends on the recruiter. Some do pay you per child. Some give you a flat rate. I would look out for the flat rate ones, because if you're getting paid per child, it can be difficult. Okay, because you might only have one turn up, and then the recruiter only gives you that one. So if you're booked to have 4 kids, only one turns up, the recruiter might only give you 25% of that, because they say, well, only one turned up. Whereas if you've got a flat rate written in the contract, that's a good way of doing it. How do I get started? Rhea, in a minute this video will be able to watch and then go start again about 40 minutes ago. How do you test your students on the level of English before you start teaching them? Placement tests. There's lots of placement tests online. Depends on if you're going, for example, if you're going to be teaching writing, you would judge their writing by grammar. If you're doing speaking, or you would sort of test their pronunciation, that kind of thing. There are online tests. You put a trial lesson, whatever. You do a regular TEFL course, then is online and add on. I'm not quite sure on your question, so I'm just gonna by regular TEFL course, do you mean a classroom course where people are in the room with you and then you add on? Yes, for sure, but then I guess you would need to have your own school or work for a school, and then you'd get the students that way. And then an online add-on, well, no, I would, if you're going yourself, I would do one or the other. If you do classroom lessons, or you do, I've got a local guy who lives around the corner who I'm teaching at the moment. We go meet in the Starbucks. We don't do anything online, so we just go like that. Our needs analysis done different with online lessons. I'm nervous about doing my first needs analysis in case I do it wrong. Do you use a specific website? Send them. No, I would say the needs analysis is no different, Adele. Their needs and what you think they need are the same, whether you're teaching them online or teaching them in a classroom. Okay. Nervous about doing my first. In my experience of 15 years experience, sometimes that needs analysis changes as you go on. It's quite hard to do a needs analysis if you just meet someone for 5-10 minutes. Also, you might find once you get going with them that they actually need something else, and you just go like that. Online, no, I would say it's no different. Do you use a specific website you send them? To do the needs analysis? No, that should really be done in like an interview where you have some prepared questions for them. Just go like that. Right. Marion, if you email the group, if you email the page, they might be able to help you. I think that's me. I've been going on there for an hour. I hope I've answered all your questions, and I hope I've given you how to teach online. If you do have any specific questions, please message them to the page and they'll get hold of me, the lovely people that work in the TEFL office, and they'll be able to get them to me, and I'll see if I can answer them for you. Okay? Yes, David, of course, there is an online module as part 120-hour course that you can do it. Right, from Northern Ireland, I just want to say many thanks. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it's been educational. I hope you've understood what I've said and I didn't go on too quickly. Thank you very much, everybody. It's nice to hear from you all over the world. Good luck, whatever you do, and you're gonna be okay.